Katie Zimmerman has been the executive director of Charleston Moves for 4 months now. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down with her one-on-one. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Katie!
Hello, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing just great.
Good.
It's been what, 4 or 5 months now?
Savannah reminded me it's been 4 months.
Wow.
Yep, yeah.
Who's Katie Zimmerman, the director of Charleston Moves, in your mind?
Oh, that's a complicated question. I haven't changed that much. I think I'm still, slightly crazy. Definitely, the change has been really getting ultra focused on one particular theme. Mm-hmm. So, when I was at the league,
right.
I was all over the place. It was air, water, and public health. It's
right.
a huge category.
Right.
Now certainly air, water, and public health are related to biking and walking and running, sure. But it's a little more focused for me, so I think that's helpful.
Yeah, let me take you to a couple of headlines.
Cool.
New bikes. A recent Charleston City paper headline reads like this: Holy Spokes and Charleston Moves help give 180 place residents new bikes. When you hear that headline again, Katie, where are you emotionally?
It's so proud that we have this opportunity to work with all these great partners. My colleague Savannah had actually she'd been chatting with 180 Place about doing something like that, and they are already, 180 Place is already super ahead of the game on that. They've been investing in bikes for their guests and trying to help with that aspect of transportation for a while now. So it was kind of a natural partnership to work on, and I think that we're going to be able to continue working together in different ways. And it's just a really good example of how when you're working on a transportation issue, it's really easy to partner with lots of different groups because it affects everything. So that was a really cool event, and 180 Place they're amazing.
And Brad Cashman and all those folks.
Yeah.
And let me take you to another issue: ideas into action, bridging equity. So I'll ask you to you bluntly, Katie, what ideas do you hope you can bring into action as far as equity?
It's a huge issue. I think right now, and this isn't just in Charleston, this is everywhere, there's this perception from folks that people who want to bike are, they're the spandex crowd, they have these expensive bikes, they're racing, they're just doing this for fun or, for a super good workout. And that is just one small facet of the biking community. And I want to make sure that people understand that even if you are, when you look at the spectrum, right, you've got the people like me who are going to bike regardless, just because I just am maybe not always thinking things through, but you've got the hardcore people who are always going to bike. It doesn't matter if the infrastructure is there or not. And that's just the way it is. And then you've got on this end the people who have no other choice but to bike or walk. Either the bus system isn't efficient for them, they can't afford a car, or for other reasons they don't want a car. They don't have another choice. And then you have this huge swath in the middle, probably about 80% of people who would like to bike or walk for their trips if they had a safe way to do so. So it's really important that when we're talking about equity and transportation, first of all, equity in transportation is the baseline for how everything's going to work properly in our city and elsewhere. If you don't have access to safe, connected, and efficient and dignified transportation options, you're left behind. So that's a huge part of the discussion. But then we also need to make sure we're bringing this entire spectrum into the discussion. So if you don't have any other choice, we want to make sure that you're in this discussion and we are fighting for you. And if you want to be able to get out there and bike or walk, you also deserve to be part of that discussion. And I consider you, in my mind, a part of the biking and walking community. If you just have that desire, you may never do it, although everybody's a pedestrian at some point, but you're part of the biking community if you want to be able to bike. And so that discussion about equity, the discussion about this is way more than people in spandex going on and joyriding. This is a very important quality of life issue, and oftentimes it's a matter of life and death. So we need to make sure everybody's at the table for this discussion.
Speaking of quality of life, let me take you to this headline from the Charleston City paper. Charleston area leaders rally against offshore oil exploitation. Government master stance against drilling affirmed. I'm curious, what is your stance on this issue?
Absolutely 100% against offshore drilling in the Atlantic and seismic testing in the Atlantic. The cost is, the risk is not worth whatever may be out there. The last time anybody estimated the oil reserves that were out there, if we were to go out there, get that oil, and then continue on the same consumption patterns that we are in the US, the estimates were that it would last somewhere around 6 days. So we would be destroying an entire ocean ecology. We would be torturing hundreds of thousands of marine mammals, all for 6 days worth of energy. So then you launch into my new role here at Charleston Moves, and we have got to figure out how to get around without impacting the environment so egregiously. So I'm absolutely against offshore drilling, seismic testing, and I think if we are looking at multimodal options of how to get around, it will help shift the discussion away from our elected officials feeling like we need to go out there and impact the environment for people to get around. We have a lot of other options for transportation. We don't need oil.
Another discussion, as you know, on social media is this. And this is the headline from Post and Courier on August 7th. The return of the Grand Hotel. Top-level project plan for Charleston City Market. You responded to the article by saying this quote, how top-level will developers feel when they realize there's a horse abuse barn across the street and a giant polluting cruise ship terminal out the road? Just curious. So what are you more curious about when you think of the Grand Hotel in that area?
The market has been an area under such intense scrutiny for so long. You have all these neighborhoods that are adjacent to it that have been concerned about balancing quality of life with tourism. And that is such it's an overarching discussion that we have had in this community for decades now. And whether you're gonna build for your people or whether you're gonna build for tourists, it's really important to be careful about balancing those two. And I also just sort of was, when I saw that headline, responded that way. I'm not sure that people understand, and I don't know this particular investor and developer, but I've had discussions with other developers who invest in that area. And it's always surprising to me how few of them are paying attention to the fact that if you're putting a building and bringing people in to something that is pretty much adjacent to the cruise terminal, where you have these gigantic ships that are emitting hundreds of thousands of tons of pollutants into the air and into the water. And these investors aren't aware of that aspect of cruise tourism. So I was fascinated when I saw the words top level, because I hope that they have gone and sort of tried to figure out how they're going to address this air pollution aspect that they are investing immediately adjacent to.
Describe to me the following one word: clean water rule.
No. Controversial for unnecessary, one word.
No, go for it. Go for it. Just take your time.
Controversial, but needlessly controversial. There's a lot of misunderstanding around the clean water rule, and it's really interesting to me because when you look locally, we have so many people now who are understanding how important our wetlands are and the functionality of wetlands, upset about what they feel is overdevelopment. And a council member said to me the other day, we've got to get a handle on no longer filling wetlands for development, it was interesting to hear him say that. So you have on one hand the local population really upset about the idea of filling wetlands, and then on the other hand you have these discussions about the clean water rule that directly impacts how we're protecting wetlands, I'm not sure people make that connection on a daily basis. I'm not sure they understand that we have industries that are targeting a rule that is protecting the wetlands that protect us from flooding. And I think it's important that people dig into that and learn more about that because it's very important.
The proposed Legree Bridge Bike Lane.
Yes. I'm excited about it. I am still optimistic that we are going to have a safe bike and pedestrian route across that bridge. And I'm optimistic about it because I believe that we have decision makers and planners who understand that right now people's lives are at stake. So, you know, there's an argument to be made, and it's certainly a relevant argument. And the DOT has this in the agreement that was made between the DOT, county, and city about this project, that if they need to take the lane back for motorized traffic, they can do so. Now, there's this updated study out there that shows that, you know, they may not necessarily need that lane for motorized traffic for another decade. But also, if you look at the bridge itself, it's going to need to be replaced. It probably already needs to be replaced. So I look at the Legree bike ped lane as phase one of this overarching project. And I think that the language in the memorandum is exactly how I'm thinking about it. So phase one is getting that lane converted for the use of people on bike or on foot now so that they are safe. Because we already know people are getting hit riding their bikes across that bridge now. Since the last city council vote, 3 different people that we know of have been hit riding their bikes across the lane or across the bridge, and one just recently got out of the ICU. So people are in trouble now. So we need that lane to protect people now. And then let's have that in place while we all get together and figure out the long-term solution. So by the time the possibility arises that the DOT would need to take that lane for motorists, we already have something else more permanent that is designed, funded, and permitted and ready to go. So whether that's adjusting a new design on the existing bridges, which I'm not sure would make sense in 10 years, or if it's building an entirely new bridge for bicycles and pedestrians. Whatever that future solution looks like, let's get started on that now, and also convert the lane so people are safe currently.
Some people might be sitting here thinking, how in the world did they build an Arthur Ravenel bridge before a Legree bridge?
Yeah. Well, the Ashley River bridges are very historic. Not that the Pierman and Grace bridges were not, but I think there's sort of an element, you know, they're so charming and they are historic, and there are a lot of people who think they're iconic and associate it with West Ashley and don't want to see those bridges go. The county just awarded a request for proposals to a consultant because they're going to start studying the 17 corridor.
Okay.
So on Savannah Highway, somewhere around the Avondale area, across the Ashley River bridges, and then into the crosstown until you reach 26, they're going to have to study what the plan is for that. How are we going to move all different modes of transportation efficiently and safely? So the discussion is going to come back up. I think the biggest discussion will be during that process, what do we do about these bridges? Because I think there's some people who say, let's just take them down and get a new Ravenel-like bridge. And there are others who say, no, we have to protect these historic bridges, so let's leave them and maybe build an additional bridge, or I don't know what that looks like. I can't imagine what would go into, for the long term, retrofitting those historic bridges. I suspect it would be very expensive.
Quintin Zimmerman, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
Thank you. So good to see you again.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Yeah.